So today we're going to be doing a shock strut replacement on a 2018 Chevy Tahoe. Truck has like, I don't know, 78,000 miles on it, and it's felt like the shocks have been blown out for the last, I don't know, 70,000 miles, pretty much since new. That never really felt great, but that's besides the point. We're going to get started here. We're going to be swapping out. We're going to be keeping the springs, so we're just doing the shock absorber dampener portion of the strut. So we're actually going to disassemble the strut and break it down, and we're going to start with getting it out of here. So let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is up on the top of the strut mount here, we got to get these little plastic bits off of the tops of the nuts on the studs here so we can get the bolts off. So I'm just going to pry up with a screwdriver, or in this case a pry bar, to get them to pop off so that we can get going. And once they're off and out of the way, we'll unbolt the top of the strut assembly. This one's going to be a pain in my neck, because it can be. I'm just going to pull that last one off camera. Alright, so with those clips that hold the wire loom in place out of the way, we can get to those three 18mm nuts. And you just want to hit these guys. You don't want to hit this one in the middle, otherwise it's going to disassemble the spring from the strut and not end up looking too pretty. So with a comical amount of extensions, you get a pretty clear shot at those three nuts from up top, and I'm just gonna take them off. Obviously you don't need to see me do all three nuts, so I'll just save you the hassle. Alright, so we've broken free the 3 bolt nuts, and we're just going to take them off and put them down here. The last one I left the socket on because I figured it would be easier to grab it from underneath here, which it is. You could probably pull the wheel well liner out and not have to go from up top, but I mean, it's a pretty clean shot if you have some good extensions. So I used a comical amount of extensions because mine are busted. But yeah. So next up, we'll get those two off. And I know you're probably looking at that shock going, wow, this is a 2018 model. Yeah, salt state. Happens. Ironically, I got my Colorado about the same year and just finished up the shock job a couple weeks ago. And none of that was present on mine. Mine, I could wipe the dust off and it still looked brand new. They get washed and cleaned and everything taken care of the same way, so I don't really know what's up with that. Anyway, we're gonna do these 2 bolts down here, which are 15mm, and we're gonna bust them free. That's number 1. As you can see, rusty. And we're going to get that second bolt out. Same thing, rusty. Happens. And be able just to kind of put some downward pressure and pop it out. Maybe it's got to come out through the top. Rather than doing anything exotic, I'm just going to bust the tie rod end off, and it should drop out the rest of the way. Or in this case, not. So you're just going to do one of these, which is kind of difficult to demonstrate with two hands, and just, you know, take the nut off the tie rod end. So once I lifted up the tie rod end, the shock absorber kind of just fell out. So, yep. We're going to go take this guy, get him set up in the vise, and start disassembling the shock. So first and foremost, don't mind the messy state of my workbench, but anyway, one of the joys of working in the north is rust. So well, yeah, we could probably, you know, disassemble this with an impact and some heat and some penetrating oil. I like to just chuck a wire wheel into a drill, like so, and just kind of run the wire wheel around the threads there and clean them up, so that way we minimize as much as possible the amount it's going to be fighting us while we take that nut off. So I'm just going to do that off camera and then get back to you. Alright, so we got the threads cleaned up. I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of something. Just, you know, give it a fighting chance as it comes off. Next up, we're going to get the strut compressor set up. So this is an OTC strut spring compressor. More or less, it's just a clamshell compressor version of the two rods that you can rent at any auto parts store. I prefer this one. It's a little safer when you start getting into these heavier spring weights. It's more just personal preference. One other thing I will say is this one is recommended for use with a impact as per their instructions. So basically all I've done is set it up. The pins are a little in the way of being able to come down over the coil every way around. Not a big deal, but once there's tension under it, it's not like they're going to pop out anyway, as long as it's properly seated. So we're just going to ramp down on this until the perch is freed from the tension of the spring. So this is by and far the part I hate the most, but basically I've got it compressed enough that it's spinning freely on the housing here now, and you just want to take a note of how it was mounted. So basically the tilt on the little foot there, and the outward facing pin goes that way. So we're gonna leave it like that, and yeah, we'll start disassembling the coil. So I'm just gonna stick my handy dandy little set of metric adjustables on here, and then start backing off the nut. And this is again going to be very difficult to do with one hand, so I also want to take note of how this comes apart. So this cup right here goes in the top, followed by this guy. And then put that back up. And then this whole bushing should just kind of pop out here. And same thing, keep that with our other parts because we will need them. And then this cup should come out along with the bump stop. And we'll leave that there. And then the dust boot. And now we'll very carefully take the loaded grenade out and put it somewhere where if it does decide to let loose, it will not hurt us. My understanding is the Bilstein kit does not come with the replacement parts for the lower spring perch. It only comes with the cup, the sleeve, and the retainer to hold it in place. Those guys. So we're going to have to beat this guy off as well as this. So I've got for me a nice mallet, and we're just going to disassemble. So with that guy out of the way, we're going to put him to the side because the Bilstein comes with a new one. And then I think I'm going to wire wheel this to try and get this cup to come off. Yeah, I'm going to do that real quick to try and see if I can make it a little easier to get that to pop off. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I've just broken off all the scale on the shock there. And now we're going to see if it will come off easy or if it's going to fight us the whole way off. I'm going to go with it's going to fight us. So I'm going to try something. Alright, so I've readjusted it in the vise, and we're just going to slowly work our way around, hoping, praying that it might pop off. I don't think you guys need to see this. I think you understand what's about to happen. I'm going to beat the ever-loving crap out of this for about 5 minutes until it pops off. So I only ended up having to beat it for about 30 seconds because it's pretty much about to come off. Yep. So with that, our shock absorber is disassembled, and we're just going to make note of how it was in the truck, which was this way, like this. So we're going to take our new one, which we had resting in the vise so that it was angled downward, and we're going to start assembling it per the Bilstein instructions. So that involves opening up your bag of parts, and you have a ring. Tapered side with the little lip goes down onto the shock absorber body like so. And rests on that ring. Next up, we're going to take our spring perch. That is going to go down and rest on top of that new ring, actually. pretty clean in there. If yours is a little gritty in there, I'd say maybe stick the wire wheel in and just give it a quick polish, but this one actually don't look too bad. So we're going to put that on like so. And then we need to install the retention cap thing. This is more or less, I'm imagining, what holds the what the bump stop impacts up against. So that goes on like that, and then I'm just going to give it a couple of love taps so that it's seated. So all I did was I propped it in the vise like so, loosely, and just used my rubber mallet and gave it a few taps on here until that collar seemed like it seated down all the way. We have our nut for our top, so next we're going to get the spring assembly back together. Alright, so we're going to start reassembling the assembly, and I have the loaded grenade here, and we're just going to slide that on first. Yeah, so we got it sitting on there like that, and we're going to put the dust boot on next, and we're just going to line the notch up with the end of the coil spring like it was originally, like so. And then we're going to take the lower spring stop and install it for the bump stop. And then we're going to take the upper spacer for the upper plate, for the mounting plate, I should say, and install that. And then we're going to take our upper plate and install it the way it had come off, which was this bolt facing up. And just so you're aware, the bolts are offset with different spacing. There are little holes, indentations in this plastic piece that allow the plate to sit flat, so you'll know when you have it lined up the right way. And then we're going to install the upper bearing, well, the upper plate, and then our nut. Now this nut is not an 18mm like the original one, it's a 15, so we're going to just spin that on like that. Set the camera up like so, and I am going to grab my 15mm open end, which this one does ratchet, and I am going to hold the end of the shaft like so and begin to tighten down my nut. You want to avoid doing what I just did in spinning the shaft. It's not recommended that you do that. That's why I'm doing this with hand tools. There is a torque spec for this nut. If I remember correctly, it's about 22 pound-feet. So, we have this close. What we're going to want to do now is just spin the assembly so that everything's lined back up in the proper orientation. Originally, this bolt here was in line with the end of the tube, so when you're looking down it, it was perfectly in between that, resting here. Obviously with the spring still compressed, we should be able to get this perch torqued and then adjust it, and then as we take the tension off, the spring will just stay in the spot it's supposed to stay in. So I am going to continue with the assembly. So we're going to get everything aligned. But as I was saying, typically the next time this comes apart is going to be when the shock is getting replaced. Is just decompress the spring and then put the assembly back in the truck. So what I've done is I've just gone ahead and fed the shock in from the bottom, and I'm just going to take one of the nuts for up top and place it on loosely so that it doesn't fall off while I move the pry bar around. And really all I'm gonna do is just pry up on the shock absorber until it kind of pops into place down there. So I'm gonna do this with two hands, but you might be able to get away with one. So all I did was I just kind of pried up and it popped in more or less where it needed to be. If you put a little downward pressure on the lower control arm, obviously you'll be able to get it to line in, or do again with the pry bar and just kind of ease it into place. That last little bit I should be able to grab a mallet and just tap. So one other thing with the Bilstein kit that's interesting is it actually comes with nuts to replace the lower sheet metal bolt retention setup. My understanding is both the lower and upper strut mounts, according to Bilstein and the service manual, Bilstein says to use the OE service recommendations. The service manual says to torque them to 37 foot-pounds a piece. So I'm going to do that. I'll just snug up those lower ones and then hit them with the torque wrench. And then the outer tie rod, I believe, is 26 pound-feet plus a certain degree of rotation. I want to say it's like 45. I'll double check, and all the torque specs will be in the bottom. So I'm just going to go through real quick. Alright, so those are installed and torqued. Last thing to do is to just get the wire looms pressed back on there. These back ones have two little washer, one for the harness in the back and then the cap that goes on top. And this is all the same on the other side as well. There's wire looms that go on top on the driver's side. But yeah, so the last thing to do is to install that. And so we're looking at 26 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees on that outer tie rod there. So I'll just take this with the 21 millimeter and get her all done up. So with that installed and torqued, I am going to go move to the other side. Again, the process for the other side is more or less identical to this one, so I don't really see the need to record anything. And then we'll do the back real quick. So I'll see you out back. Alright, so we're on the back. I did the driver's side real quick. It's more or less the same as doing the passenger side, so not overly concerned about it. For back shocks, I mean, they're pretty simple. There's no springs to deal with or anything like that. It's just pop out the lower bolt, pop out the upper bolt, drop the shock out, put the new one in. You've probably noticed in both instances the front and back has been jacked up when I've gone to work on it. If I have to show you how to jack up your vehicle to work on it, this isn't probably something that you should be doing to begin with, just saying. So 21 millimeter socket and wrench for the bottom, like so, and let's get started. So all right, now we're going to grab our floor jack. Typically on GM multiple link rear suspensions, the shock runs out of travel before the suspension runs out of downward travel, droop, or whatever the technical name is. So one pump that'll allow us to slide the bolt out easily and get the shock free. And now this top one, well, that's going to be a little more difficult. Looks like we can get the wrench on this side, and we might be able to go in front and back with the ratchet. I'm going to investigate that for a second. Alright, so I've just gone up from underneath with my deep socket and an extension, and just popped it on the head of the bolt back there. And it seems like it gets cradled in the frame well enough that I should just be able to use this open end out here and bust this free. Now, practice and practical are two very different things, but I'm gonna put the camera down and just take that out. Alright, so I've gotten the shock out. So we're gonna go and put the new one in. And the only thing I'll say, the torque spec back here is 85 foot-pounds on the upper and lower bolt. I haven't the slightest idea how you can get a torque wrench on the top there. Obviously down here it would be pretty easy, but I'm just gonna go very tight and call that good enough. If you wish to put a torque wrench on it, you can be my guest. Basically, the top of the shock goes in like so. So we're going to feed you down in here. And we're going to feed the top in like that. And this is more or less what you're looking for. I'm going to go get the bolts and put the bolts in. Alright, so the shock is installed and torqued to spec. And, I mean, that's pretty much it. The other side is more or less the same, just without the exhaust being in the way. But again, it's kind of the same situation. I don't really see the need to show you how to do the other side, as you have just as much access as you do on this side. Obviously, we could go take a look at it. But it's more or less the exact same thing. So with that, good luck. Hope this helps somebody out. Or not, you know. You can critique it too. It's fine. Have a nice day.